Hello, my name is Omar Abasad. It is 3:06 p.m., October 23rd, 2020. So I'm going to show you what Take looks like on an on and off basis programming. So my ear is hurting. My jaw is hurting. My eyes are burning. And it's not alarming right now, but it was before. On and off. Off, okay? So we've determined that it is an on and off basis. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about the signals. I think I established that I'm being hit with microwaves several times before, for years actually. So I'm going to show you the signals. Say it's an on and off, it's just coming on. I just put it on, so it takes a while. There we go. There. Okay, so it's on and off and the power level is low. So I got some rest last night. So I play music or I play chanting while I'm sleeping. When the power is down, I get rest. So I started playing Hemisync. You can Google that. It's a brain entrainment frequencies. I play rain, I play the sound of waves, I play chantings. So I don't always do the same thing all the time. So 95 is the saturation, 19.7. Did I see 20 plus? Yeah, it was actually 20 plus. So let me double check that. So there's a lot of electricity on in the hand. So it's 15.6. It went down to 11.8. Okay, so it was in the 20s. Okay, ignore that flat line because I just changed it. So it takes a while to after moving the finger around and manipulating the monitor, it takes a while to get the signals going in the correct pattern. So there, so it's perfect, almost perfect. But the PI is quite high, in the 20s. You see that? Which means that the pulses are very strong, which means that the signals, the electrical signals in my body is high. Okay. 25.3. Can you see that? So you get that focus there. 25.5. Where's my glasses? Okay, so my glasses is on the other side of the table, but it is in the 20s. Okay, so I'm going to leave this in my hand, and I'm going to read to you an article that Dr. MERCOLA posted. I got it in my inbox today. So, and I posted the link to this. I'll post it again. It says the global takeover is underway. And I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's a very long article. So a story at a glance. So the bullet points at the top. So according to the World Economic Forum, by 2030, we will own nothing and be happy about it. Terms like the Great Reset, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and Build Back Better all refer to the same long-term globalist agenda to dismantle democracy and national borders in favor of a global governance by unelected leaders and the reliance on technological surveillance rather than the rule of law to maintain public order, which is what I am tweeting about in the building. It's just a microcosm of this experiment. It's just a tiny example of the experiment that is being carried out globally right now. For decades, war and the threat of war have enriched the technocratic elite and kept the population going along with their agenda. Today, pandemics and the threat of infectious outbreaks are the new tools of war and social control. The Federal Reserve is working on a central bank digital currency, CBDC for short, and all digital currency system is part of the system of social control. Key globalists players working on the implementation of the technocratic agenda include the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, Bill Gates, and foundations such as the Rockefeller Foundation, the UN Foundation, and George Soros's Open Society Foundation, Avanti Communication 2030 Vision, and Frontier 2030, Google, MasterCard, and Salesforce. The World Economic Forum public relations video above, there's a video attached here in the article, 8 predictions for the world in 2030. Short as it may be, offers a telling glimpse into what the technocratic elite has in store for the rest of us. This includes you'll own nothing and you'll be happy about it. Instead, you'll rent everything you need and it will be delivered by drone right to your door. Amazon. I'm surprised Amazon wasn't mentioned in the list I read just now. The US won't be the world's leading superpower. Well, that's because it's being brought down as we speak. Instead, a handful of countries will dominate together. And guess which one is fighting for power right now? You won't die waiting for an organ donor. Rather than transplanting organs from deceased donors, custom organs will be 3D printed on demand. Well, that's a good thing. We'll eat much less meat, and that's probably a good thing too. Keeping in mind how our livestock is treated. Meat will be an occasional treat, not a staple, for the good of the environment and our health. Well, we shouldn't be eating, in my humble opinion, we shouldn't be eating meat every single day, maybe 3 times a week. As detailed, I'm not a vegetarian. As detailed in many previous articles, this is a foolhardy idea, not just for health reasons, but also environmental ones. Integrating livestock is a foundational aspect of successful regenerative farming and can solve both food shortages and environmental concerns at the same time. Okay, that's one opinion. A billion people will be displaced by climate change. Okay? As a result, countries will have to prepare to welcome more refugees. Well, that's already happening under different reasons. Polluters will have to pay to emit carbon dioxide, and this is the report. To eliminate fossil fuels, there will be a global price on carbon. Vandana Shiva, PhD, discussed this in a recent interview. Rather than promoting organic and regenerative farming, the technocratic elite are pushing something called zero-budget natural farming. Bill Gates is part of the scheme. As explained by Shiva, the wholly owned, wholly with a W, or natural setup works something like this. The state takes out large loans, which are then divvied up to farmers to grow food for free. The farmers make their money not by selling their crops, but by trading their soil carbon rate on the global market. The state, let me reread that. The state takes out large loans, which are then divvied out to farmers to grow food for free. Communism. The farmers make their money not by selling their crops, but by trading their soil carbon rate on the global market. How is that for change? You don't sell your food. You sell your rating, like a credit rating, a carbon rating in this case. Basically, carbon is being turned into a tradable commodity, replacing the actual farm output of grains and other crops. Farmers with higher carbon in their soil will make more money than those with carbon poor soil. Meanwhile, they'll make nothing from the crops they grow. In other words, there might be food shortages. You will, or you could be preparing to go to Mars. Well, what we're doing to the planet, I'm not surprised. Scientists will have worked out how to keep you healthy in space, thus opening up the possibilities of becoming a space-faring race and colonizing other planets. Western values will have been tested to the breaking point. It is being tested. We haven't reached a breaking point apparently yet, although in my opinion, we should have. The lockdowns are going to test the point, the breaking point. Pandemics are a tool of social control. The other section. For decades, war and the threat of war has enriched the technocratic elite and kept the population going along with their agenda. War and physical attacks have been repeatedly used to foist ever more draconian restrictions upon us and remove our liberties. The Patriot Act ran through in the aftermath of 9/11 is just one egregious example. Today, pandemics and the threat of infectious outbreaks are the new tools of war and social control. All we had to do was lock our borders, folks, and not listen to the World Health Organization. For years, Gates has prepared the global psyche for a new enemy, deadly invisible viruses that can crop up at any time. And the only way to protect ourselves is by giving up old-fashioned notions of privacy, liberty, and personal decision-making. So I'm getting poked in my rib, and that's it right there. And there is the reading. So the PI dropped to 10.7. Because the electricity affects in my opinion, the electricity that's being pulsed in my body. So the power is just turned up and my chest is hurting. The electricity that's being pulsed in my body by these signals, which is an active denial type system being used. Two components, RF and EF, high EF readings in it. It penetrates the body and affects the electrical current, which in turn affects the power of the pulse of the beat, which decreases the PI reading. So right now it's 13.4. So let me just continue reading. The only way to protect ourselves is by giving up old-fashioned notions of privacy, liberty, and personal decision-making. We need to maintain our distance from others, including family members. We need to wear masks even in our own homes and during sex. Teresa Tam's a suggestion. We need to close down small businesses and work from home. We need to vaccinate the entire global population and put stringent travel restrictions into place to prevent the potential for spread. We must track and trace everyone every moment of the day and night and install biometric readers into everybody's bodies to identify who the potential risk carriers are. Infected people are the new threat. This is what the technocratic elite wants you to believe. And they've succeeded to convince a shocking ratio of the global population of this in just a few short months. If you're unfamiliar with the term technocracy, be sure to go back and listen to my interview with Patrick Wood, the author of Technocracy Rising, the Trojan Horse of Global Transformation. The Trojan Horse of Global Transformation. And Technocracy, the Hard Road to World Order. We can also learn more on Wood's website, technocracy.news. A new digital currency system underway. So the next section. Two of the last pieces of the totalitarian takeover will be the transition to an all-digital currency linked to digital IDs. And Doug Ford rolled out the digital ID this week. With that, enforcement of social rules will be more or less ensured, as your finances, indeed your entire identity, can easily be held hostage if you fail to comply, and that's the idea. As Doug Ford, government said, I forget the guy who actually said it, in one of his live updates. Everything that about you, your birth date, your birth certificate, your licenses, your taxes, all your health records. And I'm not sure if your financial information is on there as well, but definitely everything that the government has about you will be on there. Just think how easy it would be to automate it such that if you fail to get your mandated vaccine, your vaccinations definitely will be on there, or post something undesirable on the net, your bank account becomes unavailable, or your biometric ID won't allow you to enter or allow you entry into your office building or maybe your home that you're renting. So your bank account definitely will be on there as well because your taxes are there. Yeah, because your taxes are there and all your receipts are going to be scanned in. An August 13, 2020 article on the Federal Reserve website discusses the supposed benefits of a central bank digital currency, CBDC. There's general agreement among experts that most major countries will implement CBDC within the next 2 to 4 years. And all digital currency system also plays into social engineering, as it can be used to incentivize desired behaviors, the social credit system. Very similar, here we go, very similar to what China is doing with their social credit system. And this is what I've been tweeting about, what's going on in this building, the experiment that the Chinese are running in the building. And I'm sure I'm not the only one enrolled in the program. And they're using it as one way of managing the building. For example, you might get a certain amount of digital currency, but you can have, and I just got a huge pulse on my thighs. There it is right there, huge. Every time I talk about what the Chinese are doing in this building, and every time I talk about, that hurts, damn, excuse me. And there's knocking underneath the unit. So the person underneath the unit definitely is doing, most likely is doing it. So every time I talk about what's going on in this building, yes, it's Chinese run, but there are other people taking part in it, Indian, and I tweeted all about this. This is not a racial thing, but it's Chinese driven in the building because it just happens to be a Chinese area. So again, another pulse. And the person in the loaded knocking is getting very loud. He's knocking very loud. Yeah, so it's Chinese driven in this building, but in other areas, there might be other ethnic groups driving the same sorts of experiments on different ethnic groups. There is a list. So, okay, so let me just go back to reading. So you can see how distractions take place. So what I've been talking about and tweeting about in the building, the social credit system, There are meetings under glass, obviously, 24/7 surveillance. I'm a target, I'm nothing, I'm an it, I'm an animal, I'm a guinea pig. And they can do anything to me as they see fit. And it's all covered with the government, with the cops. So it's all fixed, and the military. So it's all fixed. So this is what turning out somebody means. And of course, this is all going to court. All the information and all documents are that's being filed from this building about me are all evidence to this point. It's an experiment, an illegal experiment that's being carried out in this building. And I have absolutely no privacy, which is being talked about in this article. You'll have absolutely no privacy. Okay, so. An all digital currency system also plays into social engineering, as it can be used to incentivize desired behaviors very similar to what China is doing with their social credit system. For example, you might get a certain amount of digital currency that you have to buy, but you have to buy a certain item or perform a particular task within a certain time frame. So you're being rewarded. You're an animal, in other words, completely controlled animal in a cage, which is exactly what the Chinese traffickers in this building, such as PK, who openly said he's working for the highest of the highs, the elite. He's looking at me. This is what people like him and people who are working, other groups working with him, other ethnic groups, not only the Chinese. And this is not a racial thing, because this experiment is being carried out globally in every country. In this environment that I'm in, it happens to be purely Chinese, or mostly Chinese backed, because it's mostly Chinese populated. So my home is being turned into a cage, and I'm being acted upon like a monkey in a cage, which is now the world. Everybody in the world are now monkeys in cages. So many uninformed people will believe that these new CBDCs will be very similar to existing cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, but they would be seriously mistaken. Bitcoin is decentralized and a rational strategy to opt out of the existing central bank control system, while the CBDCs will be centralized and completely controlled by the central banks. If you have been intrigued about investing in Bitcoin as a safer alternative to the stock market, but you didn't know how to understand the process, the video below is an excellent introduction. Okay, fine. So the globalists. While I mention Gates a lot, he's not acting alone, of course. It just so happens that as you trace the connections between the decision makers of the world, you'll find him in an astonishing number of places. For example, in October 2019, Gates co-hosted a pandemic preparedness simulation for a novel coronavirus known as Event 201, along with the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security and the World Economic Forum. The event eerily predicted what would happen just 10 weeks later when COVID-19 appeared. Gates and the World Economic Forum, in turn, are both partnered with the United Nations, which, while keeping a relatively low profile, appears to be at the heart of the globalist takeover agenda. So in the globalist world and the satanic globalist world and the Masonic world, they always tell you what they're going to do before they do it. This is one of their golden rules by which they live by. Gates, I studied a little bit of it. Gates is also the largest funder of the World Health Organization, the medical branch of the UN, while the World Economic Forum is a social and economic branch of the UN. Other key partners that play important roles in the implementation of the globalist agenda include foundations such as the Rockefeller Foundation, the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, the Ford Foundation, Bloomberg Philanthropies, the UN Foundation, and the George Soros Open Society Foundation. Okay, so these were called before. I went through this list at the top. The fourth industrial revolution is a technocratic agenda. So the next section, and this is only halfway through the article, so I'm just going to read this and I'll let you read the rest. In decades past, the technocrats, the global, mostly unelected elite that steer the management of nations worldwide, called for a new world order. Today, the new world order has been largely replaced with the terms like the Great Reset and the Fourth Industrial Revolution and the slogan, Build Back Better. All these terms and slogans refer to the same long-term globalist agenda to dismantle democracy and national borders in favor of a global governance by unelected leaders and the reliance on technological surveillance rather than the rule of law to maintain public order. In other words, just like I'm being hit with microwaves, as I just showed, you're going to be hit with microwaves using 5G. I read recently that in one of my feeds on Twitter that prisoners from San Quentin, did I get that right, are going to be released. Murderers, basically, murderers, rapists. And I imagine these are hardcore murderers and rapists. So what they didn't say in that article and that tweet was if they were released, obviously, well, maybe not so obviously, they're not just going to open the door and say, that's it, you're out. You can go live your life now, even though you're like 5 years into your 25 term or life sentence. Obviously, they're not going to do that, right? Not going to do that. So what actually is going to happen? What actually is going to happen is they're probably going to put a monitoring device on the person, or they're going to chip the person. And they're going to be tracking them, just like I'm being tracked. And people are going to be logging into them and managing them remotely. This is what the article is not going to tell you, because it does not make sense that they're going to release murderers for free onto the street. Obviously, they're going to be monitored, and they're going to be monitored remotely. So this is the part. They're being used as guinea pigs, in other words, just like targets are. And in the end, when you're finished, because we are not people and we're not human beings, we're a non-person, we're going to be disposed of at the end of all the experimentation. They say it's already being done. It's already being rolled out. What he's talking about here is already being done. And keep in mind that in the Masonic world, in the chessboard, this game of chessboard that is being played, we are just players. We are just pieces on this chessboard. The master is all-seeing and all-knowing. So he's playing both sides of the chessboard. And this is what the election is all about, or any election. The elections is really a dog and pony show for the masses, the unwashed masses that we are, people. So they can yell and scream and argue and fight amongst themselves and get distracted, while the master is really carrying out the show behind the scenes and pulling all the right strings to get what the planned outcome is. It's a planned outcome. In my opinion, the outcome of the US election is already known. We already know who's going to win. It was planned. Okay, so in all of these terms and slogans, refer to the same long-term globalist agenda to dismantle democracy. So what terms? So the terms, right. Today, the New World Order has been replaced with the terms like the Great Reset, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and the slogan, Build Back Better. All of these terms and slogans refer to the same long-term globalist agenda to dismantle democracy and national borders in favor of a global governance by unelected leaders, and the reliance on technological surveillance rather than the rule of law to maintain public order. And that's the whole idea of what we're experiencing with COVID-19 is behind, what is behind this whole, in my opinion, military experiment. As expressed by Matt Hancock, the British Minister for Digital Culture and Media and Sports, but digital culture, media and sports, during a speech before the all-party parliamentary group on the Fourth Industrial Revolution in 2017. One of the roles of the parliament is to cast ahead, to look to the horizon and tackle the great challenges of our time. So I applaud the creation of the APPG on the fourth industrial revolution, which surely is one of the greatest challenges we face as a nation and as a world. The nature of the technologies is materially different to what has come before. In the past, we've thought of consumption as a one-off and capital investment as an additive, yet put resources into the networks that now connect half the world or into AI, and the effects are exponential. I'm delighted to speak along as many impressive colleagues who really understand this, and alongside Professor Klaus Schwab, who literally wrote the book on the fourth industrial revolution. Your work bringing together as you do all the best start again. Your work bringing together as you do all the best minds on the planet has informed what we are doing. Our digital strategy embedded within the will, we can build our success. And inside that fits our strategy covers skills, rules, and ethics of big data use, cybersecurity, supporting the tech sector, and digitization of industry and digitization of government. And we are already seeing that happen. So it goes on, the Great Reset, a techno-fascist recipe. And it's very, 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 very interesting. There's a quote here, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to skip ahead here. Quote, the promised utopia comes with a price, and it sets shackles on our personal freedom. That's the price, your freedom. The gilded cage, you're going to be in a gilded cage. Skipping ahead here. The COVID-19 crisis has shown us that our old systems are not fit anymore for the 21st century. Well, that's probably true, but are we going in the right direction? It has laid bare the fundamental lack of social cohesion, fairness, inclusion, and equality. So technocracy will give us all of that. It just went through how it will not. We have a choice to remain passive, which would lead to the amplification of many of the trends we see today: polarization, nationalism, racism, and ultimately increasing social unrest and conflict. Is nationalism a bad thing? Of course not. Every country has a border, and the border needs to be closed sometimes. Is it possible that this is the reason why our borders did not close? That we were against nationalism, and we wouldn't be in the position that we're in right now if it was closed and we did not take the World Health Organization orders, basically. As Tom said, if we don't follow these international policies, so I'm not sure if we signed agreements to follow it. There's going to be repercussions. And I'm paraphrasing that. But we have, so just to continue here. Okay, so it goes into Build Back Better. So as the world begins planning for the post-pandemic recovery, the United Nations is calling on governments to seize the opportunity to build back better by creating more sustainable, resilient, and inclusive societies. Well, that's fine and dandy, but in my opinion, that's just the pretty words that's being used to push an agenda behind it through. That is just the opposite. But this restart, building the pyramid, in other words. Okay, so it really goes on here. How long? Okay, so it's been half an hour. I'm just going to pick off a few more points, and I'll let you read it. This is really a really good summarization of what's going on right now. If you need something, you'll be allowed to rent it. And I'm picking up this because it was bullet pointed at the top. If you need something, you'll be allowed to rent it. This is about not owning anything. You probably wouldn't even own the clothes on your back. Wow, that's really pushing it. Everything will be fair and equitable. In other words, you'll be common like everybody else. You're going to be very, very standardized, and that's not just me talking. There will be no need for hard work. No, you're just going to give you an income, a guaranteed income. Ingenuity or higher than average intelligence. There you go. Everybody's equal. Communism. Everyone will be the same, with the exception of the technocrats themselves, of course. And in true social engineering fashion, they tell us we will be happy in our 24/7 enslavement to boot. So please read A Brave New World by Huxley. This is exactly, and he wrote it about, I think it was in 30s, 40s. So, you know, a long time ago. So is it a 100-year plan? Do these people plan in 100 years in advance? It's exactly what is happening right now, or what is intended to happen. Now, this paragraph is very, very relevant to me because this is not what we see in nature. Everybody is not equal. Nature is not standardized. If you take a blade of grass and you look at the other types of grasses, just grass, and you look at all the different types of grasses that we have in our environment, you're going to see thousands of different type species. There are so many different, just grass, obviously not standardized, and not all the same. So is it one of their plans to genetically manipulate us into being standardized and not being, not differentiating, not having gene differentiation based on different environments and different experiences? Our minds, or our brain and our minds are going to be standardized by chips. Is this what we were born into this world? Is this deep down in your soul? Since we're all human beings, I'm going to say soul in a very, not in a spiritual way, in a very, in a more general way. Let's not go deeply spiritual. Soul, let's define soul as something that is your conscience, say, for instance, right? Does that voice, your conscious, your inner voice, and everybody has it, does that tell you, do you feel that this is right, that this is why you were put on this earth? 99.999% of the people will answer, no matter how much education, and this is not about education. This is not about book education and university education. This is about life education, soul education. What do you think deep down in your soul? Is this what life should be? Is this the way we should exist on this earth? Just look around the earth. And we obviously did not make the earth. We did not make trees. We did not make the oceans. We did not make the birds. We did not make the animals in the oceans. We did not make any of these things. We are visitors. The earth made us. We were created by the same force that created the diverse, extremely diverse environment in which we live in. We did not create it. We were created. And we were given the intelligence and the ability to create as well, to use our minds and develop our minds to create. However, we are creating within limits, because there are limits, there are laws that are operating in our universe that we do not have a choice to live by. We don't make those laws. We cannot break them. We cannot change them. They exist forever and ever and ever and ever. Like there's going to be a sun coming out tomorrow. And if the earth disappears, then obviously there's not going to be a sun. Like the moon is orbiting. The sun, we're orbiting around the sun. These are laws that we cannot change. We did not create it. That essence is in all of us. So in that essence, do you think that this is what should happen? Even though we are given the ability to create and generate and to imagine and to develop our souls and develop our thinking and our brain and our world, do you think this is the right way to do it? Deep down inside of your psyche, do you feel that this is the right way to go? Were you born to be a slave, or were you born to develop to your full potential? And we existed in this form without having chips in our bodies, without being genetically engineered and genetically changed for billions of years. I would say, not millions. I would say, when I say we, I mean organically as living beings, be it a single cell amoeba or a human being. We existed in this form for billions of years. And there are genetic changes that takes place naturally. But when those changes take place, it conforms to the rules of the universe. And yes, there are bad mutations, diseases are bad. Conjoined twins is a mutation, something that happens in nature. And we've learned to change that and try to make it better. But these changes that we're making and these developments also have to be within a certain set of rules and certain set of laws. It's not unlimited development and unlimited science. We can't just put a cell or a chip in somebody because we are able to, and just genetically engineer people into a certain level of IQ level. Because if you look around us, this is not the way the world is operating. Are you going to put a chip in a tree and genetically engineer the tree? Well, obviously not. But I guess, well, maybe I should take that back. Maybe the seeds of the trees are being genetically engineered, but with a chip, maybe not, but with cross-pollinations and so on, and taking genes from other plants and putting it together. But even that has to fall within certain laws. And if we don't follow them, then we're going to self-destruct. And yes, we're going to need to go to Mars to live. Because when we start genetically engineering ourselves and genetically engineering our environment, we have no idea of how the other generation is going to turn out. Is the other generation going to be monsters? When you genetically engineer a horse or a cow or whatever, and you keep on doing that for 2-3 generations, what do you know what that's going to turn out the next time it reproduces? We do not know that. We do not know that. So we are in a dangerous path. We're in a very, 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 very dangerous path. And the chips are not going to help us. Chips are not going to help us. Anyway, so I'm going to, this is very worrying to me. I don't have kids. And yeah, you can clone anybody right now. Anybody can have kids at any age. But, and so technically I could have kids. But I mean, is it, okay, let me not say that. I know I don't have kids, so I don't have an investment in my genetic makeup being carried to the next generation. And that's perfectly fine with me. Seeing that the kids who are born today are going to be genetically engineered and not necessarily carry the genes of the parents. And even if as they do carry the genes of the parents, their genes are going to be genetically manipulated and engineered. So they're not really going to be what the parents' combination is originally. So technically, it's not really, you're not really, you know, a reproduction of your parents, technically. Plus, you might be, some of your genes might be patented. There'll be a patent on some of the genes that you're carrying. Somebody else owns that patent. So you're owned by a company that's carrying that patent. All kinds of ramifications, all kinds. We are going down a dangerous, dangerous, dangerous path leading to a dangerous world. And I'm glad Dr. MERCOLA came out and wrote this article so clearly. If people do not recognize what's going on, and if you do not stand up and fight for your genes, what your kids are going to inherit from you, your money and all of that is great, but your genes is what you're passing on to your kids. Your emotions, your imprinting is what is passed on to your children. That is no more when this agenda goes through. It's not going to exist anymore. And this is what our world, our universe is based on. This is where the differentiation comes from. This is where diversification comes from. And with diversification comes survival. It is with diversification that we survive. It ensured survival, not standardization. It's diversification that ensures our survival. Standardization is for somebody's control. It's the only reason. It's for enslavement. We have to fight it as a people, as a human race. We have to stand up and say, this is not what we want. Because if you don't, it will be the end of the human race as you know it. And the world that you know will come to an end. And the people who are driving this is going to destroy our human race, destroy the planet, and then go to Mars, because they're already exploring it. The technology is there. We have the technology to do that. They're just going to dispose of us. You know, mutations, who knows what we're going to be mutated into. We're now going to be mutants that this elite, who kept their genes clean, by the way, is now going to dispose of, and dispose the planet while you're at it, planet Earth, and go to Mars. Do you think it's a far-fetched plan? Read Dr. MERCOLA's article and do your own research. Talk to you another time.